Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the SkyTemple Podcast, an exercise in enthusiastic rambling about Explorers of Sky ROM hacks. My name is MaxSchersey, coming to you live from the U.S. West Coast and from down under in Australia. I am joined by yakkomon. It's episode 7. I think I already said that. How are you doing?
Lucky 7.
Lucky 7.
I'm doing well. It's the beginning of spring here in Australia. You know, the flowers are starting to bloom, and summer is on its way. Although we're having a bit of I think winter has decided to have the last try to hold on a bit longer. They're holding on. It's very like there's a chilly wind here.
Yeah, winter's last stand, right? That seems to always be how it works. As soon as you think you're out of it, you get that one last good winter storm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Classic. Oh, man. Okay. So we're going to have a lot to talk about in this episode, so let's try to cut out some of the filler and get right to the point. We're bringing back the news segment because apparently people want it to come back. So, it was canceled for one episode, but due to
popular demand,
thank you. It has been renewed for season 2. So season 2 of the news is here. Season 2, episode 1. What do you have for us this episode, Yakko?
Well, quite a lot actually, and I think the reason why we're bringing back the news segment is that suddenly there are many hack updates and to talk about. So, firstly, and I'll go in chronological order here, we'll have release of version 2.1 of Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Heaven and Hell. A whole lot of new features, new mode called Master Mode, which is like a really expanded, kind of really hard version of the game. Like it's stat limited. You're limited to plus 15 with the ginseng. And there's also certain conditions that actually need to be made before even getting to master mode. It is very. I think you actually need to be playing it at one of the harder difficulties to even get it. So this is like new game plus, I would say, although it's probably not that, but it's very close to it. And a whole lot of bug fixes and modifications too. There is I think it's a 200-line document here of changes. Like this is this is like Explorers of the Azure Sky with the fat PDF of changes. There are a lot of changes in 2.1, so there's been a lot of feedback for the community there. A teaser for Pikachu's Great Adventure, made by the wonderful creator of Mystery Mail, Stolen Burrito, and his partner Hi-Fan. That'll come out on September 4. Now, I don't know much about this hack myself. I think
we're gonna find out though. We're gonna find out because they're gonna be on an episode later on.
Yes,
sorry, I had to shove that in.
Yes, they have agreed to an episode, but I think it might be a bit of a meme hack. I'm not sure. I have seen snippets that look a lot like memes, so we'll have to wait and see. And as well too, Explorers of the Unknown, they've had their big update, version 0.3, with a whole bunch of new story. Now, I've watched the Hack Jam version of Explorers of the Unknown, but I haven't actually played it myself, and I've actually picked it up now. I'm not sure exactly if I'm halfway through or 3/4 through, but we'll be talking to Aspect, the creator, very soon on this podcast, and yeah, it's a really charming hack. I would definitely recommend it myself.
It's true. Aspect was part of the Explorers of the Spirit team, so you know that the influence is rubbing off. No, that's actually not true. I don't think anyone on the team really had any influence. This is just kind of like his vision. I know that some people on the team have been playtesting for him at minimum, but I think this is just Aspect's thing. I'm very excited to play the new stuff myself because from what I played the Hack Jam version. Then he came out with an update after that added a little more as well before this one, and pretty good. I like don't want to get too in depth because we are gonna talk a lot more in a future episode, but yeah, coming soon. Coming soon to theaters. That's anyone who just unlocked a memory. Hack discussion. So this is the Adex episode. We are going to be talking about his 2 hacks, Blizzard Island Guide, which came out in May 2021. I think that was Hack Jam 1, May 2021.
Yes.
And Psychic Puppets, which came out in May 2022. So this guy comes out with 1 Hack Jam hack a year. And a million things in between, but we're going to talk about that more once we interview. We have so many bullets. Yeah, we have so many bullets written on here because there's so much to say. Let me start by saying this. I'll start with Blizzard Island Guide. So we established last week, for those that have been keeping up with the podcast canon in the Decimir interview, that we are the #1 insecurities pod. And so on that note, I came. This is a true story. I came pretty close to just quitting development on my hack after playing Blizzard Island Guide because I was like, dude, who the fuck is this guy? Some guy that like no one has ever heard of. Like, you know, because at this point I had been for like probably the past 6 months just like reading up on everything, trying to like learn so much, add all these like little things to my toolkit and whatever, and like adding stuff to my hack, and I've been putting like a lot of time into it. And then here comes this fucking guy who just drops this. I'm like, dude, what the hell is going on? Is this just what's gonna happen now? Everyone else is just gonna like learn way quicker than me and make me look like a fucking idiot, which should go without saying. That's a pretty toxic mindset, and in hindsight, I kind of wasn't really in a good place when I was thinking that. But that is the thought I had. So if that gives you any comfort that I ended up releasing something and I thought that at some point, then whatever, that helps you. But yeah, this hack blew a lot of people's minds when it came out. He won. I forget what it was called.
Best hack, didn't it?
Yeah, best hack of the Hack Jam. I forget what that's called. I think it's just best hack. That's just voted on by a jury of...
Yeah.
I forget how many, because the amount of people on the jury fluctuates, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So I was going to segue into like it won because, but I think it's easier to just like describe what the whole hack is.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was saying earlier, there's a recurring theme in this podcast, right? #1 insecurities pod, where we have a lot of creators here saying something along the lines of like, I can't do things that the wizards can. Well, so this guy's one of the wizards. This hack, Blizzard Island Guide actually keeps it fairly simple. Most of the stuff in here is, there's nothing really. A lot of it is just stuff that's already in the game that is being manipulated, rather than doing stuff that is outside of like SkyTemple's capabilities. Right? There's a lot of the fancy stuff in here are doing actor loops, which are called locks. Something that I'm sure you can attest. I have tried to learn how it works multiple times, and it is so extremely convoluted that I just, kind of threw that to the side at some point.
I think I've worked out the basic thing about it and what you can and can't do with it. It sort of Yeah, it's very much the lock is very much something that once you figure out how it works, it sort of then comes second nature. But
Right, I imagine.
yeah, it does take a while to kind of wrap your head around how it actually works, because it involves using more than one def, for
Yeah,
different actors and objects and all that, and whether you want it to run straight away or wait until a certain command, it's yeah,
right.
it's very yeah, it's an interesting piece of the SkyTemple scripting engine.
Yeah, it's and the point is, which I guess we're gonna get to later. It's something that really can add a lot of probably the most practical application. Maybe not most practical. I don't know, but definitely what it's used for the most in this hack is being able to have looping anims occurring while you are mid dialogue. And that's something that they very rarely, if ever, do in the actual game. And it makes a big difference, just in terms of kind of like adding life to things, which elaborate more on that later. There's also some recolored assets in here, which this was pre any tutorials on how that works. I don't even think SkyTemple had image importing at the time. I think you still had to use GFX Crunch, which
Yes,
that shit
yeah,
was terrible. I mean, the GFX Crunch. Let me clarify. It's still the basis of what's in SkyTemple now, but my God, is it not user friendly for someone stupid like me?
and probably like me, I've never seen that software, but it looks like it probably it doesn't it look like a console terminal or something like that. It's just
From what I
yeah,
remember, yes.
yeah. No, my head hurts whenever I have to see an actual console template.
Oh man. So
That's
there's
how I had to. That's how I had to install SkyTemple on my Mac before the public release. That
oh
was
right.
it. It took me about half a day to install SkyTemple because I was just following the bouncing ball and learning, trying to understand how GitHub works and everything.
Oh my
Just say, oh, do
God.
I have to do this or that? I got it to work. I consider myself a wizard just doing that.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had those types of experiences too. It's like, oh, just look at GitHub. You know, fool doesn't even know what he's about to get into. Okay. Actor loops, recolored assets, and I kind of said this earlier, but there was a very creative use of anims in this hack, kind of like what we said about Miju a couple episodes ago, where uh, there are the chance is never passed up to throw a bunch of effects and a bunch of animations everywhere, and it is. I feel like that's kind of his style. It's very like maximalist. Uh,
Yeah.
and then there's, in terms of gameplay, there's mostly what's going on is just like some creative. I don't want to say gimmick because that sounds disparaging, but I guess that's the best word for it. You know, like alternative gameplay style type of things for the dungeons. And in terms of like edits, probably the fanciest thing that I did not pick up on my first playthrough, but then someone pointed out, I'm like, oh my God. And we got rid of the spoiler, non-spoiler, so I'm assuming everyone here's played this hack. Vanilla and Groudon, when they go through the dungeons together, there's a plot point where, you know, Groudon caused it to be sunny, and so Vanillite starts melting. So the way that this was done is Vanillite's ability was changed to be, I think it's solar power, the one where you just lose HP for being in the sun.
Right. I've never heard of that one.
But in the actual game, the text string for it was changed so that it's Vanillite's actual ability, which is Ice Face, I think. I might have that wrong, but it's his actual ability. But he was given the ability that makes him lose health in the sun, but it was changed to be the ability he already has. So it's like the illusion of adding an extra effect on, but really he's just, he's pulling a magic trick on you. So that's really, I mean, it's just super clever. And yeah, these bullets are out of order. Whatever, who cares? Let's see. Okay, before I get too far, I'm going to scroll down and go to the crux of the hack. I already talked about Vanillite and Groudon. On the back of the box, the plot synopsis, you play as Vanillite, who is a shitty tour guide. Shitty tour guide trying to like help people up the mountain, and he's trying to like recite his opening lines. And then he goes, "Oh my god, I messed it up. I'm so bad. I suck." But he finally gets a visitor to his mountain tour.
And this is his first visitor. Am I not mistaken?
Yes.
Yes. And, he's never done it before.
And so it's Groudon. And he wants to just take a break from being a cool, legendary guy, and to do something menial and connect with society. And by the way, I think a lot of people kind of who have played both hacks already know this, but basically everything I said will be coming up again in Psychic Puppets. There are so many like connecting thematic points, and sometimes even like literally like actual plot threads. It's pretty crazy. So I guess I kind of want to talk about it more in depth now, I guess. I guess let me start with this. Vanillite has this combination of he's prideful in what he does, and simultaneously he has no self-esteem at all. And that's something that I maybe this is just me showing my ignorance, but I don't see that depicted too often as like, a fiction trope, I guess. But both these definitely show themselves at the same time, where Vanillite has no confidence in himself, but he's very excited. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be the good tour guide. But then
it's very human and relatable, I think. Like it's sort of like, I guess with fiction, like, and to your point about probably why we don't see it a lot in fiction is because fiction more often than not is a bit of an escape, I suppose. We might not want to see, I mean, or if it does, it's played up for comedy. Like it's sort of, it's hard to write, I think. Right. And I think this is why I personally really like Vanillite as a character, and then when we talk about Psychic Puppets as well, is that it just feels so relatable and human. Like, I think we've all had a moment in our lives where we have been like, we do not want to mess this up. We love what we do, but it's like, oh shit, I have no idea how to do this. How am I? It's like, it's really, it's just, I find Vanillite and just a really, really cool character. No pun intended.
Yeah, that's essentially him. It's like he has a good head on his shoulders, and he reacts in a way that's kind of, like a normal, just like kind of in like a risk adverse way, I guess is how I want to say that. Right, there's a part in the middle of this game where once Groudon sleeps, we're gonna talk about that scene later. Vanillite kind of like pops up, and then he has this moment where he like raises one eyebrow like the Rock, or maybe it's both eyebrows. I think it's one, whatever. But he's like looking at him weird, and he's like, "What is going on with you?" why are you following me? It's something that really doesn't have to be there, but adding, like, for plot purposes, there's no that you don't have to add that at all. But it adds a lot more context to his character, and it kind of makes him less flanderized, I guess how I want to say that. I don't know if you can flanderize someone that, like, wouldn't have a character to begin with, but you get what I'm trying to say there. Like, it adds another layer to that. And then the other half in this relationship, it's you have Groudon, who is and this is something where, before I talk about Groudon, let me get my other bullet out of the way, because that's going to lead into Groudon. Both of these hacks, like, again, almost everything that we were saying about, like, the writing style, the themes, and whatever carries over to Psychic Puppets. And, like, once we start talking, they'll become more obvious. But in Blizzard Island, there's just, everyone is quirky, and there's a level of, like, awkwardness to them. You know, like, these are characters that are very, very charming, and all written with a sense of humor to them. You know, there's that's a theme. Like, there's no one that is not quirky, weird, and funny, right? And that's why when what you were saying earlier about, like, I think this stuff, like, normally only gets played up in comedies. I think that's what this is. Like, that's how I would categorize this if I had to. This is so we've had a couple episodes talking with Decimate and with Ask Cucumber about shitpost hacks. This is not a shitpost hack, right? This is a, like a TV network comedy almost.
Yes. I agree there.
And there's something to be said about just how the tone stays consistent through it, just because that there's some kind of ethos, and I hope we can get a good answer on that, or I can ask good questions to get that information out of, like, even when the serious scenes come up in this hack, which they do, there are a couple like cool scenes, or like intense scenes. You're kind of just smiling the whole time, because there's just a lighthearted atmosphere the whole time, and it's kind of like everything's gonna work out, and the good guy's gonna end it, all that stuff. So this leads into Groudon, who is a meme character. He is.
It's very much the SkyTemple trope of legendary Pokemon that are so bizarrely weird that they're almost children.
Right. Yes. Very infantile. That's a great way to put it. Groudon is immensely powerful, but also just very awkward, and just doesn't really have a grasp of how he's supposed to interact with a weakling and, like, make them feel comfortable about themselves. And then there's a couple times where it's like the idea is indirectly brought up. I mentioned how Vanillite directly asked, but it's like, Groudon, why are you here? And he's just like, I just want to go to the mountains. And then at a point at the start of the game, Vanillite's like, can't you just, like, build a mountain on your own? Then he goes, yeah, but that wouldn't be fun. So that's the type of character we have here. It's
yes,
he's just kind of there because he's there. But there's this this bond that forms as they both learn what the other has, etc., PMD stuff. So that's, I don't know, that's kind of the plot synopsis. Then the next couple bullets I have just
they're kind of the Adex flair, I suppose.
The Adex flair. And feel free to interrupt, because I just have a bunch of these in a row. But if you just want to time in on any of these, There's really, especially for the time, guys. Like, I know this hat came out a year and a half ago, but really, really, really strong emphasis on in terms of cutscene direction. There's a lot of like text formatting things that a lot of people weren't implementing at the time, and like I was saying before, this actor FX, sound effects, visual effects that are slapped everywhere at all times to make the dialogue really punchy, right? Because this is a comedy, so everything's super exaggerated, right? Like there's a part where Groudon starts freaking out, and the way that's depicted is while he's talking, he's zipping across the screen at like max speed while he's talking in all caps, going, "Oh no!" There's other stuff in here, like there's forced ellipses, like having just like adding a manual pause instead of a key pause, and then advancing past that. Which nowadays there's a lot of people do that, but at the time that was not popularized. There's a couple times where there is like a depiction of just someone not talking, where if you're like me, whenever you just want to like create the illusion of like the camera turning to someone's face and they don't talk, then you just have the text box of them show up and then ... The way that he does that same thing is he just turns it to them, and then instead of ... there's just nothing, and it's just like a text box shows up, and then it's like a wait before something would start, and then the text box cuts out. I don't know if I'm describing that in a way that makes sense, but like the text box just shows up blank for like a half second, and then it cuts away.
Yeah.
To the next text box. That's pretty cool. And force closes, which is like it makes it cut away without key input.
And I would add to probably there. I don't know if it's just one scene or if there's more of them, but the use of the meme portraits as well. There was I think this was an emote of Vanillite that had that were melted, a melted Vanillite. I think that was a SkyTemple emote before it was in a hack, and yeah, sort of, and that sort of like. It's almost like a tension breaker too, because I think that was after like a period of silence where Groudon's like, "I'm not hurting you in any way, am I?" And Vanillite's like, "No, I'm just, I'm normally like this. Excuse me one moment."
Yeah, but there's one line, I know what scene you're talking about. There's one of my favorite lines during that part is Vanillite's like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It's only my face that's gonna be gone. That's gonna come back." It's just, see what I mean? Like I hate having to like keep using the word quirky, but I don't know how else to describe that. Because it's just like it's like stupid, but with an element of, like just like genuine earnestness.
Dumb stupid.
Yeah.
It's comedic stupid.
Right. And this is kind of the cool thing about writing a comedy too, is that you can take creative liberties, and just like people do dumb things because they do dumb things, and you can get away with that. That's like, like this is not I'm thinking about how I want to say this, for like all the effort that's put into this, and put into the dialogue, because like this isn't being half-assed. I don't want to give people the wrong impression, but for all the effort put in, it's very like, it doesn't take itself very seriously.
Yeah,
it's very tongue-in-cheek the whole time, without being just like, drenched in irony, like everything on the internet post, I don't know, like fucking 2008. Yeah. Scenes I liked. Groudon going to bed is so funny.
Yes.
It's just really great. Like, if you could do a breakdown of everything that sets up the punchline in that scene, and when it hits, it's it's just so fucking great. That is now here's the thing, folks. Talking about hack of the year stuff, I think that what we're probably going to go with, because some people have made multiple hacks, but you're only going to be able to nominate like your best one for the hack of the year category, right? Like you got to pick your one that represents you as a creator. So Adex most likely isn't going to pick this one, but if he did, I would say Groudon Going to Bed would be a strong contender for cutscene of the year. That's probably one of my personal favorites. All the hacks I played, but there's a lot of other good ones. There's at the very end of the game, when Groudon saves Vanillite from Glalie and he like breaks out of the ice prison. Glalie just stands there, and then he's like, Groudon asks, "Aren't you gonna run?" Glalie goes, "No, I have accepted death." And Groudon goes, "Okay," and then he just spins and hits him with his tail, and Glalie goes flying off the screen in like 2 frames. That one's pretty good. And then there's the scene where the avalanche comes. There's so many moving parts to that one. I know that was really hard to get all the positions and timing correct, because I have done similar scenes. I don't know, like, probably not as complex. I guess it's hard to compare, but when you have something like that that rushing water asset, you have to be so careful about where everything is positioned, and it has to be in a natural way where everyone gets to the right spot, so that when the big object comes in, the big Anon, it's like it looks cool and it doesn't look everyone doesn't look crammed. So I really appreciate how that one was executed. In terms of gameplay, by the way, before starting, Yakko said that he has not played this one. So, you know, game reviewer who hasn't played the game, shake my head.
Yeah. Adex, I know you're going to be listening back to this. I'm so sorry.
No, in the comment section, tell Yakko that he should play this hack on top of the 20 other hacks that we're playing for this podcast. So there's, like I was saying before, there's novel gameplay ideas and cool like focus on gameplay story integration. You know me, I'm a big games as art guy, so I like that stuff. Most of the dungeons in here are effectively reverse escort missions because Vanillite sucks. And he cannot recover health because of his, stupid Groudon and the sun. He sucks. He can do damage, but not enough damage, and he will die in pretty much 2 hits to everything. So you will very quickly realize that you should just let Groudon do all the work. And it took me probably like 3 floors into the first dungeon when I realized, like, oh, well, that's the point. Because Groudon is Groudon, and Vanillite isn't really good at what he does.
Would you say it's Bidoof and Snova on steroids?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good comparison. And by the way, like I keep saying Vanillite sucks. I think some people might point out in the comments or whatever that like, well, he doesn't suck. That's kind of the point of the game. And it's true, that is the point of the game. But early on, Vanillite has no self-esteem. So it's something that kind of lines up. And then this starts to change as soon as you get to the Glalie boss fight. And this is the first time in the game where you actually... Vanillite has to, for story purposes, do something. And the way it's set up is there's 3 Glalies. It's positioned so 2 of them are going to team up on Groudon. And then on the other side, it's... So... You're facing up and down, right? Groudon is at the top of the screen, Vanillite at the bottom of the screen. The Glalies are in top left and top right. So they both go to Groudon immediately, and at the bottom, there's a 3rd Glalie. So since you're playing as Vanillite, you have to go after the Glalie at the bottom. And it's this really cool moment where mechanically everything is set up to make Groudon seem cool because he's taking on 2 guys at once, and he has I forget what move, but he has some move that hits 1 tile around him, so he can kill both of them at the same
Plume,
time.
maybe?
Probably Lava Plume.
I'm just guessing.
So he does that. Meanwhile, the Vanillite out here is struggling to take on 1 Glalie. But it's not really that hard because this is like very purposeful balancing where he can handle just 1 Glalie in this situation. And at the same time, it's very interesting because Groudon's this really cool guy, but he's not invincible. So at some point you actually have to support Groudon for him to eventually get past both of them. He can hold his own for a while, but at some point you're going to have to heal him, or you're going to have to throw in some extra attacks, or you're going to have to do some kind of support something from the back. And it's this moment where it really feels like the two are starting to become a real team. And then this is so good because that leads right into the avalanche scene. And there's this realization of, Groudon, again, I kind of mentioned this briefly earlier, really is genuinely interested in kind of the menial little things of life and places some kind of value on that. To the extent where he really cares for Vanillite. And, he knows that Vanillite isn't, he's, a little, weak guy who needs to kind of get escorted the whole way, but he doesn't really care because, this guy's cool, I guess. That's pretty much the reason. There's a certain there's a certain wholesomeness just about that idea. And then you have the Avalanche, which is the last dungeon, and what I wrote here is the Avalanche is one of those things that made me actually mad when I played through it because I should have thought of that first. It's an escape the burning building segment, right? This is the planet's going to explode in Metroid, or Ganon's tower is collapsing, or whatever. Take your pick. The way it's done is you play as Vanillite, and Groudon's not with you. So you're not killing anyone. You already know at this point, because it's established that he sucks. So instead what happens is the movement speed of every enemy is cut in half, so you can juke around them. It's so cool. I will say this level couldn't be too long, because it would get repetitive, and it's not long, because I think he knew that. But for however long this lasts, it feels very, very fresh, and it's enough to just try out a couple little things. Because all the item spawns in here are things that manipulate your movement, like the orb where you fling yourself against the wall. Yeah, quick seeds I think are there. There's the switcher orb, so if you come across someone in a hallway, you can just go past them by swapping your spot. And there's a lot of ways to get around stuff. Warp seeds. Yeah, pretty cool, and I should have thought of that first, and I'm mad. It's the way this is executed is, at first it feels very desperate because, oh my god, Groudon's not here to help me. What am I gonna do? But then it's the design is executed in such a way where sooner or later you're gonna realize oh, I get it. And it's something that makes you you feel really smart once you realize it, even though it's glaringly obvious in hindsight what you're supposed to do. That's just that's cool level design stuff. We're 40 minutes in. We haven't talked about psychic puppets yet.
I thought this was going to be a long one. Yeah, so psychic puppets. I have this one down on my essential list of hacks to play. This was the winner of the third hack jam. I think we may have said this before, but I think this pretty much takes Blizzard Island Guide and refines the formula even more. And for me, I feel like, unlike Blizzard Island, where a lot of the stuff you could have already put in mechanically in game, this is where we talk about the wizardry that people kind of, almost quit making their own hack about. This is where, you have the ASM patches that get thrown in, which is, for those that don't know, a sort of a more lower level code than what SkyTemple provides. And yeah, there's new gameplay mechanics, a story that I think is very sort of, it oozes charm. It oozes charm, and it feels fresh, even though at the same time it keeps that Explorers of Sky vibe. It's just very. I found it very, very charming to play. It has a lot of heart in it. And if you don't mind, if I take some of your
Sure.
dot points here, because I'm on a roll here. The plot of it is that Mewtwo is living in a cave, has spent hundreds and hundreds of years in solitude, but decides to finally leave his cave. He finally gets enough, he is riddled with anxiety, social anxiety, but finally goes out into the wide world.
The way I wrote it on the doc was,
yes,
spring 2022, Mewtwo gets fully vaccinated and is ready to re-enter society.
yes, he's about to re-enter society, and essentially he has all of the social skills of a person who has none, and all the Pokemon really they just do not want to interact with Mewtwo at all, because to them he's just so weird. He just does not act in any way that is normal. So instead, as Mewtwo really wants a friend, and decides to use his psychic powers to brainwash a Pokemon in the forest, a forest Pokemon, and then it becomes his quote unquote friend, where they live together. Now there were 3 Pokemon to choose from. I chose Pidgey as. Oh, that's right, I forgot. He decides to name his friend Mew3, because of course he does. So I chose Pidgey just as my Mew3. Out of curiosity, who did you choose
I went
for your
Wurmple.
one?
Wurmple for sure.
Wurmple. Yeah. I went Pidgey just as a matter of personal preference. I was actually playing it on stream with Adex watching, so he was judging my every move. And I think he said that Pidgey was a good, in terms of it wasn't easy mode, but it wasn't hard mode either. I think it was it was a good balanced one to choose. But definitely too, a lot of the sort of the 8x flair that we talked about before. Again, I think this is the first use of what I think bolded text, or the sort of the illusion of bolded text in this.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, and there's sort of well, you've got here that there's a lot of more VFX and SFX stuff, like sound lowering in cinematic scenes, and there's a lot more emotional scenes in it, but it's still at its heart a comedy. I think it's a comedy, but it's I would say it's a bit more dramatic. It's more of a dramatic comedy rather than a TV sitcom type of one. So that's pretty much my synopsis. I probably rushed through that, but given where
that's good.
where we're running, we've spent a lot of time already. I thought,
yeah. A couple things I want to touch on. The Mew3 joke is so stupid, and I was laughing at it for a long time. I was like, I'm pretty sure what I said at the time. I was like, "Yo, Mew3, where's Peekaboo?" Oh man. Yeah, Mewtwo. Like we were saying, there's so many parallels to Blizzard Island Guide because it's just a role reversal though. Because Mewtwo, this time he's the legendary who wants to do menial things, much like Groudon, but like Vanillite, he's the more like awkward one that has no self-esteem at all. And he has no self-esteem for a different reason, and it's that he has, no social skills because he has all the skill, all the fighting ability in the world, and he can take care of himself perfectly fine, and he can survive. But like, he doesn't really care because you want what you can't have is kind of the thing, and he just gets very frustrated that like, this stuff that comes off is so natural to everyone else. I think the way that it's worded was like, everyone else can just be happy and make friends, so why can't I do that? And he puts it in very blunt, simple terms, but that's something that's Mewtwo, and that's like, again, like you're saying for Vanilla, that is like a moment that I'm sure people have had at some point in their life, and kind of a point that's being driven home is that Mewtwo is like emotionally stunted. I think for a lot of us, we've had this moment maybe when we were in like middle school or like maybe high school, but it's like, I think a moment that a lot of people still remember in their lives of like, why is it so easy for everyone else?
Yes.
So that's kind of where he is in this game. Yep.
I was just saying, do we want to talk about the gameplay mechanic of this game?
Yeah.
Brainwash. I think I really enjoyed that. To be honest, I think.
Oh, it's cool.
It was great. Just there was the brainwash mechanic, which basically allows you to insta recruit any Pokemon you like without defeating them. You can just take them wherever you want in the dungeon. It's fantastic. I see you've got some comments here about like how it's overtuned as hell.
Yeah, this is where it is really overtuned. Now, there's kind of an asterisk on that because this hack has kind of like an easy mode and a hard mode. With the last dungeon, you have the option to actually go through all 99 floors if you want to. But if you don't, befriending is kind of just like really good. And it's kind of like basically no drawback, and you get to draw enemy damage onto someone else and just get like free riskless damage. Like anyone that's played PMD enough knows just how much it helps to get one extra ally that can not die in one hit. Like it's immensely helpful.
Absolutely.
It's really, and that I guess why that's relevant for me saying like it's overtuned is because Blizzard Island Guide actually I think is pretty tough. Like not super crazy because obviously there's a lot of harder hacks. There's a lot of hacks that explicitly try to be hard. But you definitely have to think quite a bit. Like you have to be very careful with what you're doing in Blizzard Island just because of the nature of it. Because Vanillite sucks. Going back to that point. Mewtwo and Mew later, who you play as, they don't suck. They're like pretty, they can pretty much just handle everyone else on their own. And then there's just the cool thing thrown on top of it. So it's just something different where it's very much a, it's more of like a power fantasy element of it, especially from the Mewtwo end and from like a story perspective, rather than trying to actually like balance the dungeons, in my opinion. Which, if that's what you want, then there you go. But I just think that's something to throw out because they're not going for the same thing. Is my point that I got to 5 minutes later. It's not the same thing. Blizzard Island, I think, is very consciously trying to like hit a sweet spot in difficulty. This is just like, here's something cool that you can mess around with and just like feel cool.
Yeah.
There's that dungeon where you have a timer to get through it. Apparently
Yes.
something happens when the timer expires. I don't know. I guess I'm just too good at the game, so I never encountered that.
That happened to me.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think. Well, what happened to you? Because that way I can then say if the same thing happened or not.
I just got to the end, and then Mew was like, maybe I should tell him the truth. And then that cutscene happens.
I think it's pretty much the same cutscene. It's just different reactions. Like
Okay.
oh no, he's or something. Like I can't 100% remember because it has been a little while. I played this for the Hack Jam jury back in May, so my memory's a little bit fuzzy. But yeah, I think actually I should also ask. It's technically not a bullet point, but did you win or lose the Xatu fight?
Lost. That
Yeah, I lost too.
one definitely seems like I am very curious what the strat's supposed to be on him, because apparently it is possible to beat him, but I don't see how. Which is fine. I said when I played through, like, I'm perfectly fine with that, because Xatu should not be able to be beaten. Like, I think Xatu is he should be the Sephiroth of PMD.
Yes. Well, there you go. There's a hack idea. Anyone out there? Recreate Final Fantasy VII with Xatu as Sephiroth.
Excellent. Yeah, I have a couple other random bullets on here that I just want to touch on before we get to the interview. The overworld puzzles in Western Cave are pretty cool. I think that we talked about this with in the Miju episode, but there's so much potential for overworld puzzles in this game. I think that we collectively, EOS hackers, are only scratching the surface of what's possible. I think that
absolutely
the way that it's done here is like it's just a check to if you have the right person recruited, then you can advance through the once you have your key card, you can go through the door, right? It's I don't know, just adding any kind of interactivity with the overworld is something that shockingly basically never happens in PMD, except for those parts in Gates to Infinity. And that's basically it. Like I think they're like in the middle of the dungeon where like you have to sneak around to avoid enemy encounters, but that's not getting off topic. I think the opening like 5 minutes of this hack are just so good. I really like another one of these things where like I was mad I didn't think about it was the cold open for this hack where it's it's slowly scrolling through the midpoint of Western Cave while there's kind of your intro text automatically scrolling over and stuff. And of course you have like some extra like pauses for dramatic effect thrown in there and all that good stuff in bolded text. And yeah, oh my god, it's so good. Just Mewtwo's opening monologue, like you perfectly understand what's going on after like 3 lines that he says.
It hooks you in straight away.
Yeah, no time wasted. The Lombre gag where Mewtwo finds the base of the team from Rescue Team. So Mewtwo gets Mew 3 on his team, who is actually Mew 1. I also called that joke when that happens later in the game. Mew 3, who is actually Mew 1, your Wurmple Pidgey, or I forget the other one. Mewtwo is like, oh, well, we need to have a home. I know, let's just like take the home of the guy from Rescue Team. So you do that. Lombre shows up. And then he, starts doing the Blizzard Island Groudon, rushing back and forth. He's getting mad, and then there's like a meme portrait that shows up, and then Mewtwo just like snaps his neck and like kills him off screen, and then it says Lombre was defeated, 0 XP gained, and plays a little jingle. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I see your bullet there. Did you find the secret boss fight? I don't even know what that is. Oh.
Oh, well, yeah. So, okay. So, because I was playing this on stream, Adex was like, "Oh, wait, there's something. There's like some little secret." And
Okay.
there is a now. Again, I played this back in May, so I
Yeah.
actually forgot how to activate this. But I think it has something to do with Gulpin's shop doing something with it or whatever. But essentially, you have a secret boss fight that involves a pirate for alligator going
Of
after the
course.
VIP juice from Mystery Mail.
Yeah, that's on brand.
Yeah, it's on brand. I know I'm kind of giving away the secret here, but I don't know how it's activated. So find it yourself, players.
This leads into my next point, where this is an Adex hack, right? Tonally, it is almost identical to Blizzard Island. They're like a lot of, like I was saying, Mewtwo's kind of an amalgamation of the two main characters, and Mew is kind of someone who he's also awkward and quirky because everyone attacks is awkward and quirky, and trying to kind of like reconcile with the idea that like, yeah, Mewtwo's like, he's really weird, but he's cool. He's like a cool person, which is kind of the thing that Groudon goes through in Blizzard Island. So to this point, since there's more characters in this game, and this is something where I just feel the need to mention it because I like it. Some people might not like it. We already mentioned this game takes place in like the rescue team town, and every character in this game is 8x'ized, including ones that already exist. Like we talk about that Xatu scene. Xatu being like a quirky guy instead of just like stoic staring at the sun was really weird. Like it took me a little bit to get used to it, but it fits with what he's going for. So I just thought I'd throw that out. It's
Yeah.
If you are someone who deeply cares about your canon interpretations and don't think that anyone can have any other spin on, you know, existing lore, then that's gonna bother you. But I don't give a fuck about that because it's so that's up to you. Yeah. And we didn't even talk too much about dungeon design. Like this is probably like actually the biggest difference from Blizzard Island because Blizzard Island, like I was saying, it's a lot of, I guess, gimmick dungeons. You know, a lot of like novel ideas. Pretty much all of them. Like there's no just straightforward like what is Adex's take on a normal dungeon loop. We never really saw that. That shows up in this hack with really all of them, but especially Western Cave, where things, you know, it starts to not just be kind of like a cakewalk, go through everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. I don't really have much more to say than that. We already talked earlier about the brainwashing and befriending. It's just like, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The entire game is very much like the dungeon design. I think is very much centered around that. I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's sort of the big thing with that one. And you're right. You know, the dungeons are quite easy to go through, and it really only is until the final pass through Western Cave where you're combining that with the overworld puzzles. That I
Yeah.
think as a final dungeon, it's great. Like the whole final set piece in it, and you know the boss fighting, and it's just, you know, if you have again, if
It's
you have not
paced
played
well.
this hack, yeah.
It's paced well, and there's good build up because you have your little breaks for your overworld part, and then there's a couple like mini bosses thrown in there. You know, it's like nothing gets too stale. I think is probably the biggest strength.
Yeah.
Which is also the biggest strength of Blizzard Island in terms of dungeon design. I think so. There you go. Anything else to say, or should we interview?
I think we should get on with the interview.
All right, let's go. Commercial break. Bye. And we're back. This is the start of the interview. We have Adex joining us.
Hello.
Yakko, you want to do the
That
first
is his
question?
voice. Yes. We have so many questions. Where do we start? So I thought I'd just start nice and easy because I'm always curious. I'm one of these people that like asking this question. How did you find out about SkyTemple? Because we talked about before how you sort of you just we sort of first heard of you when you submitted your hack for the Hack Jam Blizzard Island Guide. But I'm really curious, like what got you into SkyTemple? I think you may have told me before all that, but refresh my memory.
It's honestly nothing special. What was it? It was one of Para's first videos, like before like the official trailer came out, where it was like, "This is SkyTemple." It was either Explorers of Mud with the thing with his Bagon, or the Modicum tech demo thing, which had a lot of cool objects and effects related to it. One of those two got me into it, and by like I think February I joined, but like didn't do anything until Jam 1 happened, and then I'm here now. I do stuff, apparently.
You're one of us.
Oh, boy.
By the way, recurring thread, someone gets into the community from YouTube videos, really makes you think, hey guys, maybe you should make your own trailers and upload it on YouTube. Like I was saying last week. Okay. Sorry, I had a cough. First question I want to ask is, so you're a certified SkyTemple grinder, right? I think that's how a lot of people here kind of like know you as. And so far in this show, we haven't really talked to grinders, so I want to pick your head a little bit on that topic. What is it about constantly like learning and applying new things in the program? What about that stays fresh enough for you where you just like want to keep doing it and keep expanding and keep trying new things? Because I guess the reason why I ask that is because I think a lot of people come to a moment where they like maybe burn out a little bit, and I'm assuming that hasn't happened for you. So, is there a reason for that, or any kind of input you have there?
Let's see. I guess the majority of it has to come with the fact that, like, well, at least like a lot of the times back then, like starting around Jam 2, I think, when I was like starting to learn a bit of assembly, was when like I started to realize like the bunch of potential you can do with it, and I guess that alone sort of made me realize like a lot of people's like other, I don't want to say outlandish, but like really like ideas that couldn't be achieved through SkyTemple alone, that made me think, oh wow, that'd be cool if it was possible. And then slowly it started to become, oh yeah, I can sort of do this now. Like it can be a thing. And then slowly, like just sort of gradually ballooning into me wanting to know more and do more wacky stuff with the game, I guess. So it's just kind of whatever anyone has an idea, I'm just like, oh, that can hopefully maybe be done, and I try it.
Got it.
And then I steal all your ideas to.
Please do. Please use them for everyone's benefit.
I will.
You have another question, Echo?
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, I actually don't have a lot of questions that I wrote. And I think the one that I'll probably ask later on. But the one I had, and forgive me if this doesn't make sense, but I wrote this one late at night. So you really have been one of the biggest supporters of the SkyTemple hacking community. I think you're always there to like help others with their problems and all that, and sort of really sort of I wouldn't say probably my words are going to fail me here, but like almost pick people's brains, or not, or sort of the opposite of that. Like just super interested in what everyone's doing, and so I think you've got a sense of sort of the vibe of how people are applying themselves to SkyTemple and how they're going and everything, and what the community's like. So I guess, what's your take on where the scene is at the moment, and where it could be going, in that, like, what the future might be for it? Like, what are you seeing, like, out of the sort of the enthusiasm that you're seeing in the community, and seeing people with all these sort of ideas that they need help with, or their ideas that they have, or I guess, long TLDR. It's what's what do you think of, like, what's your take on the community, and what it is at the moment and where it's going?
That's a really good question, and I thought about this, especially during Miju's interview, where you asked them where the scene was going, and at the time I was like, "Oh, that's a good question," and then here I am now, like, I don't know, because there's a lot. I've seen a lot of like new long-term games being in development right now, so honestly, asking me that question, even though like I've dealt with a lot of things in SkyTemple, it could go any way. I don't have a good answer for this because there's just like so much creativity and like ideas people are willing to just throw out there and then make a reality. And I honestly have no clue where it's going. It's just with every like, especially every event, like things start to get like you notice like a noticeable jump in quality, and that especially with Jam 3, I have like no idea what's gonna happen for 4 or 5 or beyond. I can't imagine it.
I guess.
Do you
And
think
this is
you foresee any in terms of like gameplay trends? Do you think that people are going to like dungeon design stuff? Other kind of like
Yes,
features that you think are like people are going to start doing this in hacks?
absolutely. Dungeon interruptions. I've been hoping for that like for a while now, and recently, what is it? Explorers of the Unknown started, so just use that like recently for their like. Well, I probably shouldn't. Actually, no, you guys haven't played that yet. No, but
I'm up to the I'm up to the
Spoiler!
Wormadam
Wow.
dungeon.
I don't know. I'm sorry, but dungeon interruptions. There. Okay. Even besides that, I won't go into things further about that. But dungeon interruptions have like an amazing amount of potential with like being able to stop things, play cutscene mid dungeon, or like do an overworld segment. I've seen some hacks started to like go around that direction, or maybe even if it's just people spitballing ideas and like a bunch of the hack channels, like they have so much potential, and I hope that people like use them a lot because you can do like it has so much flexibility with it.
Cool.
Is there anything that you've seen, I guess, that you're almost thinking, this is, or like, if this gets released, this will be the next big thing to break out? Like, from like, is there an idea that you've seen that it's like, oh, if people see that, if that hack gets released, like, that's going to be, this is going to be the thing that really kind of just like inspires the community even more? I mean, there have been so many great hacks that have done that, but
I
yeah, is
have.
there like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, in terms of like current in development ones, I mean, I guess there's a lot. There's Unknown, as I already mentioned. That's the big like. I think the one of the main in progress ones right now. Of course, Spirit is also like that one hack that people have gotten a lot into SkyTemple and just EOS ROM hacking in general. Um, uh, I didn't. I specifically came here in mind not wanting to like gush about fragments a lot because I tend to rant a lot about that, but like it has been slept on. It has a bunch of potential, in my opinion.
That's totally fair. We haven't talked a lot about fragments on this podcast because we're probably not gonna be able to interview Urquia, but we should probably talk about that at some point. I don't know if we'll have to find
Absolutely.
a place for it, Yakko.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess it's not going to be it won't be a traditional episode, I guess, where it'll be review then interview, and I almost feel like yeah, it'll be we'll see. Watch this space.
Hmm.
Okay, so next question I've got. Um,
See, you've got like
I've got way too many.
I have
Sorry.
3 questions and I've asked 2 already, and the third one is more kind of near the end that I would rather.
You're just
leave
gonna
it.
have to shove in and say a bunch of stuff, Yakko.
I'll find a way.
Oh man. Yeah, that bullet doesn't make sense. I also wrote these late at night, so some of them I'm reading, it's like that doesn't even make sense. So maybe I have less than I thought. How about this one? In Psychic Puppets, something that we talked about, we touched on, is that you effectively have multiple difficulty options in that game because you could take the shortcuts or not.
Yes.
Do you think that is... I have to think about how I want to word this. Do you think that is something that is just like what every hack should do with regards to, in some way or another, have multiple like difficulty options? Because right now I think a lot of what the climate around like dungeon balance and difficulty in that is a lot of creators are trying to find like a one size fits all with whatever fits for like what their project scope is, and exactly the type of tone that they're trying to convey, and you know what kind of audience that they're going for, and all these kinds of things are all being factored in. Different play styles, obviously, having to factor for all the different variables. So, do you think that is the wrong way to go about it, and you should just have multiple difficulty options, or what? What's your opinion on that?
Personally, no. I honestly don't mind if people can just have like I don't want to say one track, but like one specific mindset going into dungeon design, or like one specific difficulty in mind, because like you said, like depending on the scope of the hack, it's sometimes a benefit to it. Like the main one that comes to mind is, I think, Blorg, because that has a very specific dungeon design and like what you want to do with it. Where like there's like a specific strategy to do things, and even though it's a shorter hack, like you can tell like with multiple difficulties, I think in that scenario it wouldn't really benefit it. But in terms of like other projects, I wouldn't mind it. But for puppets, I didn't really go into the mindset of I'm gonna make multiple difficulties. I guess it's just sort of, if it's there, people can go for it. If not, that's fine. I guess reward multiple playstyles with like the little like extra modes I added. But I don't really like. I personally don't mind. I don't find it like bad or good if people add difficulty modes. It's fine either way.
Okay.
I always say that one of my actually favorite, like one of the things that I actually enjoyed the most in all of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games that I've played is actually how easy the difficulty was of Gates to Infinity. Like I was so overpowered that as a Tepig using rollout on Kyurem at the end, like I didn't care that it wasn't a challenge. Like dungeon difficulty is something that's it's very it's very interesting. I think
It's very very hard to like pinpoint, especially for like when the question's asked about like difficulty modes. It's hard enough getting one like down, especially if you have like multiple starters. Like I've heard it's a pain to get balancing right. So I honestly, people have their own visions, and I'm not really one to say if it's good or bad in either way. But balancing is pain.
It sure is. I think that might be the we to what you were saying earlier, everyone has like all their different ideas. I really like to think of that from a dungeon design perspective, because I wonder if we're ever going to get to the point where there's just like an understood method for balancing. I could say internally when making Spirit, we actually, because we had to make so many fucking dungeons. At some point, it got to where we just started. We set up with, because let me back up. At first, it was just we literally just like tinkered around with variables and then play tested. I'm talking like 20 plus hours on like, you know, fucking beach cave drench bluff, just trying to like mess with things till you get it right.
Yeah.
Eventually got to the point where we had a like an algorithm for assigning stats based on like a bunch of sets of variables of like, here's the expected level range that people are going to be at, and then like adjust based on like, let's say any kind of like ability multipliers, any kind of like, do they have X, Y, or Z move? Doing that, I will say, helped speed up the process significantly. Like you still have to do that kind of manual testing, and like you said, it's really hard when you have to account for multiple starters. But
yeah,
I don't know. Had to throw that in because I don't think I've mentioned that on this podcast before, and that might be helpful to someone listening. I don't know, but
I've heard horror stories about Fampi, I think it was, or Eevee, one of those two. They're like underbalanced.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick tip for anyone who's trying to do multiple starters. Just I don't want to say don't try to do something, but like don't try to be cute and have people with starters with really weird stats, because it's gonna fuck you over at some point. Is all I'm gonna say. We ended up basically just
weird.
Normalizing Fanpy and Eevee's stats to not be trash. Like we try to do so many things first. It's like, what if we keep the individuality of like, they have worse stats but they have something else? No, guys, just change your stats.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the answer.
This is why I am purely sticking to a fixed team.
Yeah, again, like that has its own benefits to it, especially. You get to do like in many ways you get to do more creative things with that.
I mean, I liken myself like the way I and difficulty for me as well. I think it's almost what difficulty do you want, or what difficulty do your players want? I think that's sort of the fine balance. Like for me, I would prefer a hack that that would be accessible to everyone. But then, that might alienate those that are bored with the Explorers of Sky formula that want a tough challenge. It's a really fine balancing act with that as well. And yeah, it's it's something I haven't had a lot to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking forward to it, but I think the challenge and the reward will be worth it. So I started talking about myself.
No, that's fine. At least for me, the main fun with balancing comes with again, this is only because I've only dealt with short hacks at the moment, but gimmicks. I love gimmicks to death so much. Like whenever another hack uses them, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes! Like this is what makes them like stand out or like do something like really cool. Even if it's a long hack, like there's like a certain theme to it or something that makes it just pop out from just Forest Dungeon number 42, right? Like Max in particular, I think Murky Forest was the one where I had to like constantly chuck rocks, and like it wasn't annoying at first. I was like, oh great, Glaceon, oh man, this is gonna be great. I was like, oh man, like you could feel like the curve and like the whole explanation for the partner going, we need to link our moves, like, and everything, right? Like it had a purpose to it, and like that sort of gimmick is like I love those in hacks, absolutely.
Yeah,
which
me
is
too.
The fun part. Like as long as it's like easy or hard, as long as it's like memorable or like fun to me, that's the takeaway I go away with. Like I don't know how to word it, but I love those.
Yeah, that is so funny that you segued into that, because that was actually the next question I had. But yeah, on that, yeah, like you said, we tried to actively do this for every dungeon. Now you like the way it happens in both Psychic Puppets with the brainwash and just the reverse escort in Blizzard Island. That's like definitely way more leaning into the unique gameplay elements than we did, though. Like, so I definitely got that impression that that's what you want to see. You want to like, and something that we also talked about is I think that I think what helps what you do, and then correct me if like you disagree, if I'm making up it and you didn't think of this or whatever. But it seems like all the dungeons are fairly short. So you have these little like extra, here's a new idea, and then it doesn't overstay its welcome because all the dungeons aren't too many floors, and then like move on to the next one.
Yeah, actually. Wait, do you have something else to go on or no?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I don't want to just say yes. That's a boring answer. How do I word it? Yes, like I noticed, at least in comparison to other hacks, like now the more that I play, that my dungeons are kind of short, and part of it is also like you said, like due to the making sure a gimmick doesn't like overlast its stay or like become annoying to a certain point, which hopefully they have. Like especially in Blizzard, that was the main worry. The main worry that Vanilla like the message pop up was too annoying. That was something I worried about. Like the moment I thought of that gimmick, I was like, oh no, this is gonna suck if the dungeons are like 14 floors and like there wasn't a time limit back then for Jam 1, but I knew it would suck if the dungeons were like ridiculously long or something, so kept it to minimum. And then for puppets, the short floors are also parted due to the time limit that was established, but also again mainly like Yakko said for accessibility and making sure like it had enough impact. It didn't like draw out for too long, and if it did, that was because people chose to do it. Like they chose to go through 99 floors of hell.
Mm-hmm.
That's on them, not on me. I gave them the option to do what they want, partially at least anyway, for like 2 dungeons.
Yeah, Mew's like, I think there might be a shortcut the other way. Am I sure that I want to do that? Says it like twice, I think, before he can move on.
Yes, I added that in the update because people kept doing it. I saw it on stream time and time, and people were like, "Oh, let's just keep going." I'm like,
oh man.
I mean, for me, I tend to lose interest in a dungeon after about 15 floors. Like I sort of that's not a hard number, but I just know that like I prefer shorter dungeons myself. Like I find say something like Tree Shroud Forest or whatever that one is that when you come back from the future, that drags on forever. That one.
it kind of
I think
does,
that's like 15, 20 floors or something, with no midpoint either. Yeah, I sort of, I to this day, I have never even in the 13 or even in the years since Rescue Team came out, I don't think I have even attempted a 99 floor dungeon once. It just sounds like pain to me.
I kind of like have sort of attempt like again with the more hacks I play, the more appreciative I become with longer dungeons. With the like beginning of like Skemple or just like EOS. When I first joined EOS or Skemple in general, right? My extent of PMD knowledge was like I played Sky and that stuck with me, and then the rest of them I played at launch and like never like looked back. So like my memories of them are very fuzzy. So like I was not like a super hardcore like PMD fan by the time I started doing stuff in Skemple. So that I guess that's also part of the reason why short dungeons are my preferred go-to method, I think. But to that point of longer dungeons are grueling. This is also why dungeon interruptions are cool because like you can have that little break in between and make it like super long. It's cool. It's the future.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Or you could be a sadist and have a dungeon interruption after floor 99 and enter another 99 floor dungeon.
You totally could.
Yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't done like one day after that special process came out. That seems on brand for ROM hack
that
communities.
Has to be done. Yeah.
All right, so getting into the bullets where I just typed a wall of text. So you've said before, I believe, that you don't like being put into an artistic box. As after Psychic Puppets came out, there's a lot of and for the record, we also did this in the first half of the podcast, saying that two stories are very similar. There's a lot of like
Absolutely.
elements of
Yeah.
Mewtwo has elements of a lot of both Vanilla and Groudon. You know, there's a lot of like plot elements that are almost perfectly parallel. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
like very similar themes that overlap, like the very similar tone. And so, what about that observation or that description is something that bothers you, or does it not bother you?
It me kind of does. It means first off, I am not that creative. I don't know how I've gotten this far into like that much praise with like, oh my, your story, Adex. But like, they're both so similar. Like, how do I word it? When first doing puppets, I I settled on Mewtwo as the character and like the whole like general plot elements. I was going through it and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be recycled from Blizzard, but let's just go with it because I can't think of anything better and time's ticking, so let's just go. And um I really, in the future, love to do more things that are aside from that tone. Or if I ever do go back to revisit Blizzard, I would like to differentiate it more. Because it was honestly meant to be a bit, like, darker, and I hope to work with, like, a darker tone in general, but, like, um, I am really aware of how, like, similar those, like, especially, like, oh, Mewtwo and Groudon, and, like, I think you mentioned while you were playing Puppets, you thought of like Groudon being a Ditto and like that sort of correlation with like the transformation. That's not the intention actually, but yeah, I noticed that too. I can see how people like draw those conclusions, and that's also like part of my dissatisfaction toward Blizzard because they're so similar. Puppets is just Blizzard but better.
So that actually segues probably into the third question out of the three. So I'm out after this. So yeah, I guess you briefly mentioned in your answer just before that you wanted to make sort of a darker hack with psychic pups and that. So I guess like what are your ideas for sort of hacks that you want to make in the future? You know, say I know you're jury for this hack jam, so you won't be able to participate, but Hack Jam 5, for instance, any ideas for any future hacks you want to explore or make, either from a story standpoint or a gameplay standpoint?
Uh, it's honestly a lot of it is just like loose ideas that I somehow like make up on the spot, and which is also like another like flaw that I have. Like I don't plan things out meticulously. Like I know a lot of people who do, and that's to their benefit a lot. But I guess for now it's just sort of loose ideas like floating around. One of them, I guess, for gameplay is like you toggle something like you use a move without like accessing the move shortcuts or like move menus. You access like a new button combo to do something. I haven't really like again like this is all just rambling. I haven't like actually like planned anything out further right now. I'm just kind of just learning more about what I can do, what's feasible for me at least at the moment. And in terms of story, yes, darker is something I would love to achieve, but at the same time is infinitely, at least for me, much more harder than what I've done so far, which is like a very limited like tone that I've had so far. I love to do it. Especially again, I'm gonna like talk about it. I don't want to like ramble on about it, but fragments chapter 2 in particular, that I saw that and I was like, oh, that's such a that's like that sort of has the tone of not many other hacks have gone for, and I would love to like do something like that or something that just is isn't a copy paste of the tones that I've worked with because it can get stale.
That's totally understandable. I think it's interesting that you mentioned wanting to like something like fragments too, because I feel like this is almost I mean it's something that we all kind of know, that there's always an element in life of like, you want what you don't have. I can say, from making Spirit, with going into the idea of like, I want to make something that 16-year-old me would love, right? Something that's that's just a fan fiction that I would have read in like 2011, or you know what? I'm not gonna do the math to figure out what year I was 16. I don't want to think about that. But like, yeah. When I think about like the hacks that you made, for example, and then we've had episodes with like Decimeter and Ask Cucumber before, I definitely think like I'm definitely not funny enough to ever make something like that's kind of a thought I had in the back of my head the whole time. So that's really interesting that it goes the other way around, because to me, I think it's a lot easier to do something melodramatic, but maybe that's just because that's what I've consumed more. That's I like emo music, all that stuff. So I don't know.
At least for me, it's like it's hard to. I guess I tried to like sort of lean into more like touchy subjects and puppets towards the end, but like it's really like particular and hard. You have to design like the cutscenes just right and like build up and everything just for like one moment. And if it's even like a little bit off, then it just like loses all momentum and it's like not worth it. So it's like it's super hard to get right, which is also something I admire in Spirit a lot, because like it has a lot of heavy moments in it. And I'm just like, oh man, that's like it's like the little pauses and everything like that. That cutscene design is like it matches it well.
And the difficulty too, I think, is that we are working with a game that, yes, it has its dark moments, but it is
magic animals.
It's magic animals. It's cutesy. I mean, the fandom around Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is very, I guess, fan fiction heavy, and a darker game, has to be presented in a way that's still palatable, I think, to a wider audience. Which, I mean, some fan fictions have been wildly successful in doing. We've talked to, I know, Mr. L, Ray and everyone else would talk about Victory Fire and all that and everything. So I mean, it can be done, but at the same time, you're right. It is a challenge, because it almost challenges the perception of what people believe the Explorers of Sky world is.
Yeah, it's along with that, it's like for me, it's even part of me is like, oh, I want to do something darker, but it's also like I don't want it to be dark just for the sake of like being different or anything. Like I want it to have meaning behind it, and in that, I guess, it is like comes a lot of the difficulties behind it, because I don't know, it's tough to write or even think about.
Totally agree with that point. I think in general, and again, I don't want to try and be the creativity police, because those people are assholes. But when you are doing something dark, funny, I just mentioned emo music earlier. Famous MCR lyric, sad song with nothing to say. Like, don't do that. Don't just be fucking sad and not having thematic reason behind it, because you kind of lose your weight that you're going for. I think that's just like a core thing to keep in mind. And I mean, I can say, like, when making Spirit, with that hack, we really thread the needle of like how much can we kind of like test everyone's patience. And one way to respect people's time is to make sure that everything has a purpose, and it does, for sure. Everything has a purpose, should have multiple purposes in case they don't pick up on the first purpose. At least in my opinion, that's just my philosophy. Which I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's something that like helps you gain that effect. I think that's, I guess, what's different from doing more of something with a comedy slant where the only qualification is it has to be funny. And I say that, like, again, reminder, I'm not funny, so I I wouldn't be good at that, but it's more like, you have one objective and everyone's kind of on the same page, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of with E-Spirit, you brought up that too, is that people analyze it like people definitely analyze it differently, and there's a lot of effort put into both, especially. But like again, I personally think it's like really well done, the whole tone and everything. But I've seen people who are like playing through Spirit and like the first parts, and I think this is intentional. You mentioned it before, but they're like, oh my god, the player partner is the player is like so edgy and everything.
Yeah,
And it's like hearing that, and you're just thinking like laughing in your chair, like, yes, if only they knew, like, keep playing or something.
I did literally do that. Yes,
it's hard. So like, audience expectation is, or I guess just reception is like nerve-wracking.
it's tough. It's tough out here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good stuff. We'll yeah, that's been going on for a while, but we can talk more about that after the interview. I want to fit in one more that's like kind of related when we're on the writing topic. And this, if you let me just say, if you don't want to answer this, or if you don't have an answer, then that's fine. We can just move on and I'll cut this part out.
Okay.
So Adex, as you know, you watch this podcast, you know we are the #1 insecurities pod on the web right now. Okay.
Okay.
Self-esteem issues are an obvious theme across your work so far.
Yes.
We've said, you know, Vanilla is this character that has is very proud and has a strong desire to do something, but he has no belief that he can actually do it. And then, you know, obviously the gets kind of like closer to resolve near the end of the story. And then you can kind of like tell where the plot was going there, even though it didn't officially end. And like in Puppets, obviously the whole crux of the story is that Mewtwo's struggling with the social skills, and that's his big insecurity. You know, you want what you can't have. And then it's kind of like a similar resolution to where it seemed like Blizzard Island was going, where it's like, well, if you make others happy, then is that, you know, what is there to be insecure about?
Is that like, that's enough, I guess.
Yeah. And another example, you've told me before that in my hack you really like Breloom, and I only mentioned that because that's another character who's a big part of his arc revolves around having self-esteem issues. So it's all these, like, you like this idea of exploring self-esteem issues in different ways and trying to overcome them. So why is this idea so interesting to you? Why do you think it makes good characters, if that's something that you've actively thought about? You know, anything along those lines.
That is a really good question. I do want to answer this. I'm just like trying to think of why.
Sure.
I've also noticed this like recurring idea, but I don't know. I guess just the whole idea, and like sort of based off of experience, it's like it's a really like relevant, I guess, topic that like I have a lot of I just said experience. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's very, very important to me, like in general. And I mean, obviously it is, of course, but it's just like, to me, that sort of like internal doubt and like conflict is part of, isn't, I guess, specific to PMD, isn't commonly seen as much, or usually in, well, sometimes it's seen like in like the partner, but that's like a very like shallow, like they're a coward, but then they become better with like the players' help, right? That's like a very like watered
very
take on
surface
it, I guess.
level, very, you know, Disney animated take on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times,
even after they save time, like he never fully learns to be independent of himself. Like there's a bit when you you go fetch Drowsy in the Darkrai arc, where if you have him as the leader, he's like, oh, no, I can't be leader. No, I am not going to do this at all. No, you should be leader.
Yeah. It's like a weird thing they do, and I think in Gates it's definitely better. But again, like fuzzy memories on that. I really have to go back on Gates for things I need to try in the future for like tone and your analysis, your 2-hour analysis, Max.
Yes, please watch.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of, I don't know how to like elaborate on it well, but it's a very important topic that I think it's meaningful to be like explored in ways that that isn't just like one note and meant for like a 2-minute like arc, and that's the end of the development, because like it's, I don't know what makes it man, this is a tough question.
So what I'm getting from this is that you think it's important to have the concept explored in a meaningful way instead of, you know, a way that fiction does it and kind of reduces things down to
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. I really can't word it because like it's something I can't really explain it, but like I feel very strongly about it. I just don't know how to word it properly.
So
but
is it like on a personal level then it's like, do you think that outside of fiction, maybe just like in the world, it's like, no, people don't really get it. You know, is that where it's coming from? Like, you want to spread that message of like, you want there to be awareness of like, this is what it's actually like when you feel this way. Is that where you're coming from?
That's also, I guess, a little bit like assumptuous of me, because a lot of it is just my like experience going into it. So I don't want to be like, this is what it actually is, partially, but at the same time, I don't want it to like, even though I just like talked about like whole Explorers is like one note in that aspect, but I don't know, it's just sort of showing a different side of it, I guess, a more in-depth side to it, not necessarily going like this is how it is. It's just sort of this is how it might be. If that makes sense somehow, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I mentioned before the interview that what I really liked about it, and I think, and this is obviously presumptuous of me. I'm not going to lie about that, but I think why both of your hacks have been so well received is that it is very. I said it was very human and relatable to a lot of people, in that, and there's not a lot of fiction out there that really explores what it's like to have that kind of thing going on. Like I could, definitely playing Mewtwo in Psychic Puppets, and I say that because that is the one that I have played and is more in my memory. I could see my own experiences in Mewtwo at various times. Just I guess for me, I mean, it's obviously exaggerated a little bit to really ram the point there, but yeah, like, and I think Max, you said yourself, like it's like that. We've all had that kind of moment where everyone seems to get it, but I don't. And I'm stealing what you were saying, but yeah, like I think that's what really, like, myself, like, and I can say this because I had to just pick stuff for like, for me that's what really stood out about Psychic Puppets is that kind of, I think everyone has at one point or another been a Mewtwo and has seen and can probably, I mean, at least for me and my personal and my life and everything, like I see a little bit of myself in Mewtwo. Maybe not the person I am now, but definitely the person I used to be. I've gone all deep and meaningful, but
That's good. That's
hey.
good. But yeah, that's definitely like another part of it that I guess some people have said that to me too. Like, oh, like this part was like very relatable, and I'm like, yeah, it is. And at the same time, it's like also like sad hearing that like, oh, it's relatable because like it's like when writing it, it just feels kind of like weird and like sad to do. Not like depressing, but like it's just I don't know. It's weird. Like having people say it's relatable and like at the one time it's like, oh, it's praise, like thank you, but also like, oh man, like sorry. I guess I don't know.
No, I think that I think there's definitely value to again emo music on the mind, man. This is kind of why I like emo music, because kind of part of the ethos there is just like, you are not invisible, right? Like these things that happen are things that like we shouldn't pretend don't happen. It's
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like glorifying these things, but like, hey, you feel like you're just whatever it is. You feel like you're a fucking loser because XYZ thing happens. Well, you're not the only person that happens to. That's actually a normal thing. Maybe not normal like it happens to 100% of people, but like, it's just like a thing that happens because we're all humans, we're all different people. So, yeah, I think there's definitely value there. Point of what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my goodness. 46 minutes. And with that, Adex in 30 seconds or less. Why is like Puppet's gonna win Hack of the Year?
Well, I personally don't believe it will, but I guess it has some charm to it. It has some cool, wacky gimmicks and stuff. But I personally don't believe it'll win. I think Spirit will win by a landslide.
I'm legally obligated to not comment on that on this podcast.
I was just gonna say that is on brand. That is an on brand answer.
I am in no way sponsored by MaxSchersey.
All right, you can call my podcast as long as you say that Spirit is Hack of the Year.
Wait, no, Max, you weren't supposed to say that on the record.
Oh,
He's gonna cut that in editing. Don't worry.
it's true. It's true. I never forget to edit things out, as Okay, what is one last thing that you want to say? I don't know why it took me so long to find that. One last thing you want to say to everyone before we cut.
Good night. It's late. I don't have anything fancy to say. I'm sorry.
Great. Man of many words and man of few words in closing remarks. Thank you for coming on, Adex. That was episode 7. SkyTemple Podcast. Thank you for watching.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.